Today we will see the theoretical side of module 2, and we will look more practical in next session. So if you go to Java Programmer 1 course and go to module 2, you have a few important concepts, and then you have to assignments to do. You have to do these assignments and then share the results with the screenshots in groups. Okay, first of all, classes and objects. Tell me, what do you understand about classes and objects based on whatever you have heard until now, learned until now? Okay, so objects are instances of classes. Classes are templates, correct? Yeah, used to define state and function, basically properties and behavior. So before going through the theory, let us quickly see a few things on a whiteboard. So in Java, we saw that we create classes using the class keyword. All keywords are small letter. So we can say class, hello world. And then we also saw we have curly braces. Inside that curly braces, we will define our methods and variables. Methods, we already saw one method, which is a public static void main, and that accept a string array. The name does not matter. So we already saw a main method. So this method is static, and because of which we did not have to create an object of this class. We could, and we also created some other static methods, and we could invoke them also perfectly. So now I will have another class. Let us call it as hello itself. And it has a variable int a. It has another variable static int b. It has a method public static m1 void m1, and inside that we can print something. Similarly, I have something such as public void m2, public static void main string argus. I have closing one. So in A, in static in B, public static void m1, public void m2, and public static void main string argus. Okay, so yeah, so static we discussed in our first class itself, right? Whenever we mentioned the public static void main, I mentioned. So static means it belongs to the class. So until now, everything was belonging to the class. So if it is belonging to the class, how do we invoke it? We can invoke it as the class name is hello, right? So I can access all static variables as hello dot here. What is the static variable? B. I can say hello dot b. I can say int c equal to hello dot b. If I say int d equal to hello dot a, this will not work because a is an instance variable. So how do we invoke this a? So for that, we need to create an object of this class. So how do we create an object of this class? You have to say hello, and then you have to, so hello is the type, which is the class. So here we are saying int c, int d, right? So what does it mean? So c is the variable name and int is the type. D is the variable name and int is the type. And whenever you are creating an object of a class, the class itself is the type, and you can give a variable name. So here I will give h1. You can say hello h1 equal to, then I have to use a keyword called new, And then I have to use the constructor of this class called hello. I will tell what this constructor is shortly. Okay, and then this is how you create an object of this class. And after that, you can say h1 dot a. You can say in d equal to h1 dot a. So now what will happen? Will it work? If it will work, what it will print? What will be the value of d after executing this statement? No, a is not a method. A is just a variable. Okay, it will print 0 because Java will give a default value to instance variables and static variables. So this also will have a value of 0. So this is an instance variable and this is a static variable. And static variables you can call like this. An instance variable, you have to first create an object and then you have to call. Clear until now? Same is the case with the methods also. Okay, so Sushmita is asking static in B. Static in B means you can call that method without creating an object. Without static, you will have to create an object like this. So here, static in B means that is common to all the objects that belongs to the class. So you can directly use the class name dot variable name. But when static is not there, it belongs to the object. So that means you have to create an object and then call it. You can also do hello h2 equal to new hello d2 equal to h2 dot a. And what will be the value of d2? Okay, so now based on this, let me give you a simple problem and you should tell me. Okay, so now the same thing only, we have created h1 and h2. So I am saying h1 dot a equal to 5. h1 dot b equal to 10. h2 dot a equal to 15. h2 dot b equal to 20. Now, if I am printing h1 dot a, h1 dot b, h2 dot a, h2 dot b, what will be the values of all these four? You can answer in a single line separated by comma. h1 dot a, h1 dot b, h2 dot a, h2 dot b. What will be the values of these if I print now? I need an answer from everybody, even if it is, I don't know. So the good thing about attending live is you can say your answer and then I can correct it. After this statement, h1 dot a equal to 5. What will be the value of h1 dot a? 5, right? Are we changing this h1 dot a anywhere? No. So h1 dot a's final value is going to be 5. So next is h1 dot b. h1 dot b, after I execute this statement, what will be the value of h1 dot b? It will be 10. Are we changing it anywhere? Yes or no? Y or n? We are changing it here. I mentioned, right? B is static, right? B is static. So static means it is common for all the objects. So whether you access it from h1 or whether you access it from h2, it is going to change. So when you execute this statement, its value is going to be 10. But when you execute this statement, because we are printing after executing all the statements, right? Whenever executing this statement, this will become 20. Okay, so now what will be the value of h1 dot b? After first statement, a will be 5. After this statement, it will be 10. After this statement, h2 dot a equal to 15. And here, value of h2 dot b will be 20. So finally, when you print, what will be the answer? 5, 20, 15, 20. How many of you got it correct? 5, 20, 15, 20. Why B is 20? Okay, I will quickly explain once more. I have a class called hello. And I have two objects called h1, h2. I have two variables A and B. A is instance and B is static. Whenever I have an instance variable, that will be created for all the objects. And whenever I have a static variable, here B is static, right? It will be created for the class. So now, first statement, we are telling h1.a equal to 5. So we will come here and write 5. Next is h1.b equal to 10. So we will come here and write 10. Next is h2.a equal to 15. So we will come here and write 15. And next is h2.b equal to 20. So as I mentioned, h1.b and h2.b are pointing to the same location. So this will become 20 because it is static. And now we are printing h1. We are printing here h1.a. What is h1.a now? It is 5. What is h1.b now? h1.b is also pointing to here, right? So that is having now value of 20. What is h2.a? It is 15. And what is h2.b? It is 20. It is clear for everybody, right? If you learn it the right way, Java or any programming language is going to be very, very simple. For all of you, I'll try my best to make sure all the core concepts are very much clear. The idea of static and instance variables are clear, right? In same way, you can call methods also. So you can say hello dot, in our case, m1 is static and m2 is instance. So I can say hello dot m1 and then hello h3 equal to new hello h3 dot m2. So for methods also it is the same. If it is static, then you can directly call them. If it is instance, you can call them through an object. Clear until now? Okay, now what is this new hello here? I told you that it's a constructor, right? So what is a constructor? So when you create a class hello, then you will have some variables, right? Int C, int D. So you can initialize them here also, int C equal to something, D equal to something. But otherwise, a good practice is to initialize it using a constructor. So constructor will look like a method. So main difference is that, so constructor will have the same name as that of the class. It is not a difference with the method. Okay, tell me one thing. So those who know a little bit of Java, can I have a method with the same name as that of the class? So constructors are having the same name as that of the class. But can I have a method with the same name as that of the class? Okay, something you can try out. So you can have a method with the same name as that of the class. So how does Java figure out whether if I write something like this, hello, inside I'm not passing anything. We know how to pass arguments and all, right? We had our calculator class and all, calculator class with add method and all in last class, right? So this hello, I am writing like this. So how does the compiler or how does Java figure out whether I have created a constructor or a method? So is this a constructor or is this a method? Tell me. Okay, this is a constructor because it does not have any return type. So this is one reason why even if you are not returning anything, you have to put the return type as void. Because if it was, so constructor is not going to return anything, even This method is also not returning anything. So if it is a method, then you have to put void here. So seeing this return type, your compiler can understand, okay, this is a method and not a constructor. So always think from the perspective of your compiler, whether I can compile this code without any issues, whether I will have some confusions. Because if you look into languages such as C, C++ and all, you had lot of confusions. So you had diamond problems, lot of confusions were there, but Java tries to avoid most of those confusions. So here, if void is not there, it will be taken as a constructor. So I can say public hello. So this is now a constructor, and inside that constructor, I can have a C equal to 5, D equal to 10. I can give some values to those variables. Or what can I do? I can even have a parameterized constructor. So like, let it be like this, C equal to C, right? C equal to 5, D equal to 10. And I can also have a public hello int a. So actually it is not a practice to put a different variable name, but we have not learned few other things. So I'll just keep it as int a and int b now. And then I can say C equal to a, D equal to b. And when I create object for this class, I can create it in two ways. Either I can create it as hello h1 equal to new hello, and then, or I can say hello h2 equal to new hello of 10,20. So now tell me what will be the value of h1.c, h1. Like last time you can message, I will show the other things now. h1.c, h1.d, h2.c, h2.d. So tell me what will be the values of h1.c, h1.d, h2.c, and h2.d. Put commas and then answer. In first case, we are calling this constructor. So h1.c will be 5 and h1.d will be 10. In second case, we are calling this constructor. So whatever we are passing will be the values. So we are passing 10 and 20. So h2.c will be 10 and h2.d will be 20. Earlier, we did not create a constructor for our class, right? Earlier, we did not create a constructor for our class, but we still, last day also, okay, we did hello h equal to new hello without even creating a constructor for our class. How did it work? This is because if you have not, so you have to understand this one rule. If you have not created any constructor for a class, if you have not created constructor for a class, then Java will create a default constructor. So the default constructor will have same name as that of the class, empty arguments, and then inside also it will be empty. So if you have not created any constructor for a class, Java will create this default constructor. That is why this worked. But if you have created any other constructor, maybe you created this parameterized constructor, then Java will not give you a default constructor. So that you have to keep it in mind. So it is very simple. If you have not created any constructor for a class, then Java will give you a default constructor. That is how last week our program ran. And then initially also we created this, right? Without worrying about the constructor, we created this. We did not have any constructor here, right? But it still will work because if you have not created a constructor, Java will create one constructor for you. And now there is also, like we have seen static variables, or static variables are also called as class variables. We have seen instance variables, And now we have also one more category of variables called as local variables. If you are declaring a variable within a method, then that is called as a local variable. So for example, in my method, like method M1, if I have a variable called int d, and now if I print the value of d, what will be the value of d? Okay, so unlike static variables and instance variables, local variables are not given a default value. So if you have not initialized and if you try to access it, it will fail. So you can say int d equal to 5, or in some way you have to assign a value, then only you can print it or use it. Instance variable d equal to 5 and your local variable d equal to 10, and if you print here, will it print 5 or 10? Okay, all are clear. It will print 10 because this will have priority. And also we saw our constructor, right? Constructor was accepting 2 arguments. So this can be a method also. So whatever arguments that are passed like this, they will be considered as local variables. Okay, so it is a general practice that we keep. So if my variables are A and B, my constructor will generally have hello, and I will say int A, int B, and inside that, so my global variables are also, or instance variables are also A and B, right? So can I say A equal to A and B equal to B? Yes or no? No, right? I cannot say, because so here both these A's will be referring to this local variable, not to the instance variable. So how can I refer this instance variable from here? For that, you can use this keyword. I can say this dot A, this dot B. So this dot means it is referring to the instance variable. Okay, this refers to the current instance, current object. So this dot A means this A, and so this A will be given value from this, and this B will be given value from this. So this is also another concept that you need to keep in mind. And also, if you need to call another constructor, so if I need to call this constructor from this, I can use like this, and this will call the other constructor. Okay, so this is used to refer to the current object. So now you know static variables, instance variables, local variables, and this. Okay, there is a question. I have a parameterized constructor, and if I create an object like hello h1 equal to new hello, will it throw some error? Yeah, it will throw error, because you do not, if you create a parameterized constructor, Java will not give you a default constructor. So here you are trying to call your default constructor. So if you have any constructor at all, Java will not give you a free default constructor. You will have to create it manually. Okay, now we will quickly go through the nodes. Java is a programming language that follows object-oriented programming principles. Object-oriented programming model focuses on real-world objects to model applications. A real object will have some properties and some behavior. For example, human object will have properties like height, weight, etc., and behaviors like walk, run, talk, etc. And classes versus object. Classes and objects in Java are used to model real-world objects. A class is a blueprint with properties and behaviors, and properties are represented as variables that hold some values, and behaviors are represented as methods. An object is a real representation of a class. For example, human class may define properties of human like height, weight, etc., and each individual like you and me are instances. So we'll have different height, different weight, etc. So static is not purely an object-oriented concept, because in most of the cases we may not have any common properties, right? But in Java, this is a way to have global variables, because Java does not have global variables like in C++, C and all. So this is a way to mimic it. So it is, unless it is needed, it is good practice not to use it. And creating a class, you already know. And important points also we have seen. Class is a keyword and is followed by a name of your class and opening and closing brace. We can add optional access modifiers. Public or default are the ones that are allowed for top level class. Inner classes can be public, private, default, or protected. We need to save this class in a .java file, which is extension of Java source code. We have seen it in our practicals already. Rules for declaring classes in Java. There can be only one public class per source code. If there is a public class in a file, the name of the file must match the name of the public class, and it is case sensitive. A file can have more than one non-public class. Files with no public classes can have a name that does not match any of the classes in the file. Properties and behaviors of a class. There can be two types of members at a class level, outside of all methods, but inside of class boundaries: instance members and static members. Each object created from a class will have its own copies of instance variables. Static members belong to the class, and there will be only one copy of static members shared by all objects. Static members have static mentioned along with their declaration. Class members can be variables and methods. So you have seen all these things. So I thought I will first show it at least, even though it is not in computer. So at least discuss the things and then we can go through the notes. You can play around all these things. And creating objects, we know class. So the class name will be the type here. Then you have a variable name. Here it is my class var. And then new keyword followed by a constructor. So if you have not provided any constructor, then Java will give you a default constructor. A constructor is a special method used for initializing an object with the same name of the class and without a return type. If you do not create a constructor, Java will create a default constructor that accepts no parameters and does nothing, empty body. With the use of new keyword followed by a constructor, new my class, the Java allocates memory for the newly created object in the heap memory and return a reference to it, which is stored in a reference variable matching the type. Okay, so that internals, you don't have to worry a lot about it now. And in Java, you have something called as an object class. Again, so this is also not needed here. I will move them to a different section because that need the concept of inheritance, which we have not learned. Okay, based on the scope in which a variable is declared, we can classify variables as class variables, instance variables, and local variables. We have seen it. Class variables or static variables uses static keyword. Class variables or static variables are declared within a class and outside all methods. So you can see here, instance variables, non-static, are specific to each object and are defined in a class outside any methods. So instance variables, so static variables, you can see static is here. So instance variables, you will not have any static. And local variables are defined within the methods or blocks in a class. Local variables are declared the same way as instance variables, except for the fact that they are declared within a method or a block. So unlike static or instance variables, local variables are not initialized by JVM with a default value. Hence, a local variable must be initialized before you try to use it. Compiler will also complain if you initialize it conditionally. For example, if you say that if n greater than 0, local equal good. So there could be chances that, okay, the local variable may not be initialized. So compiler will not allow it. So it is better to initialize it always. Default initialization of variables. A member variable is given a default value according to its type when not given a value explicitly. Local variables are not initialized with the default values, hence you can use them only after initializing. Okay, so we have seen all these things. I thought we will quickly go through the important points again, so that if you have any doubt, you can ask. And class variables or static variables are declared within a class and outside all methods using the static keyword. They belong to class and are common to all objects. They can be called using the class name, like my class dot variable, or using the object also. We saw both, right? So using the class as well as using object. Instance variables are non-static variables and are defined in a class outside any methods. These variables are specific to each instance or object of the class, and they can be called only by using the object of the class. Local variables are local to methods or blocks in a class. Their scope is limited to block or method. They are declared and die as soon as the block is executed. The local variable must be initialized before you try to use it, else compiler will complain. Compiler will still complain if you initialize it conditionally. We can declare a local variable with the same name as an instance or a static variable declared in a class, and when accessed from within the local block, local variable will take precedence over others. However, we cannot redeclare a local variable again inside an inner block where it is already declared and is visible. Local variables are always thread safe, as a different copy of local variable will be created per thread. Again, this point you don't have to worry now. Once we discuss about threads and all, that will be understood. I'm going through the notes because you can also refer to it anytime whenever you have some doubt, because going through videos whenever you are preparing for an interview or preparing whenever you have a doubt, going through video and figuring out things is going to be very difficult. So videos, you can watch it once in a while when you have time for the purpose of learning. But for reference or quick reference, you can always refer to these notes. So a variable in Java holds some data, like our C equal to D, B equal to int A equal to 5, int C equal to D. All those are variables. As Java is a strongly typed language, we need to declare the type of a variable, and the variable can only hold a compatible type of data. So if you are declaring a variable as int, then you can only add items that are of type int. Declaring the type of a variable is like introducing the variable to your program, and you should only introduce once. You can say public int myvar. So here public is access modifier and is a data type of the variable named myvar. Access modifiers tell which all code can access this member, and access modifier public tell that the variable can be accessed from any other class. Data type is the type of value that a variable can hold. Data type may be a primitive data type or a reference data type. Primitive means int, or so int is a primitive because it will hold a number. So whenever you are using another class, then it is a reference type because the variable in memory can only hold a number, right? A number or a smaller thing in a real variable. So whenever you are mentioning a class, that class will be actually constructed in some other place, and its reference will be added here. Okay, class will be created in memory, and an address to that class will be added here. So that is why it is called as a reference type. To view what you are showing, I need to create an account in Java JE. No, you don't have to create. You can even watch it without creating an account, and creating an account is always free. The only good thing is if you create an account and login, you will not see any ads or anything on the side. But if you are not logged in, you will see some ads in the side. So that will be the only difference, but you don't have to create an account or login. It is completely optional and also free. So initialization, you can also initialize like this, like whenever you are declaring itself, you can say int my variable equal to 5, and you can initialize variables from initialization blocks or through constructors. Initialization blocks we have not seen. Initialization blocks are like methods or constructors, but there will be only curly braces. There will not be any name or parenthesis or anything. This is a block within a method. So you have opening and you have closing, but it does not have a name. You can also have these blocks outside all methods. Whenever it is outside all methods, what will happen? It will be called just like a constructor. Whenever an object is created, it will be called. You can also, whenever it is outside all methods, you can also put the static here. Then it is called as static initialization blocks. And with static initialization blocks, it will be called only once. First time that class is accessed. So primitive type, data type may be primitive data type or reference type. Primitive type is a basic type. Like, so these are the available types in Java: int, float, double. I think the list is below. So there are 8 primitive data types. Boolean means true or false. Byte, character, short, int, long, float, double. Okay, so I equal to 1 here. Int is a primitive. So casting of types we will see later. Do not want to confuse you too much. Today's goal was to learn about classes, objects, static variables, instance variables, local variables, and you have idea about methods, constructors, and even blocks and initialization blocks. So all these things are clear, right? Okay, so let us see if you are in a situation to do any of the labs. Module 2, write a program with a static instance and local variables. Write a class that has two variables of type int, my static var and my instance var and my local var as a static instance and local variable respectively. Assign values to static instance and variables to appropriate initialization blocks and local variable within the method where it is defined. Print their values from the main method in most appropriate way. Write a program to demonstrate static import. Create class ABC in a package. So this we have already done in module 1 itself, right? Okay, this also we have seen in last demo, but you can do it. Overloading methods and constructors. It is simple. Basically, that also we have seen. If you have multiple methods, with the same name, but different parameters, that is called as overloading methods. And then we saw overloading constructors in our example, right? So based on what we pass, so there might be a constructor that do not accept anything. There might be a constructor that accept two parameters. So based on what we pass, Java will identify which one to call and it will call accordingly. So that is called as overloading of methods and constructors. Okay, so these assignments, so this one you can do. I'll also share the direct link. You can read through the notes. I might make little bit modifications to the notes, but these assignments you can do. Okay, you may find it challenging initially, but the more and more you do, you'll be very good. And also, you have to initially for at least 2 to 3 modules, even though it is very, very challenging, try to do it from Notepad, because the more you do from Notepad without the help of an IDE, in IDE it will be very, very easy, because when you start typing, it will give you the remainder and all, and also it will immediately tell you whether it is right or wrong. But if you can make things right in Notepad initially, then you will be learning these concepts thoroughly. Different kind of question to end with. Are you finding Java to be very difficult that you thought it will be, or do you think you can manage learning a little bit of Java also? If it is very difficult, you can say D, or if you are able to understand, you can say U. Okay, it is all use. That is a good thing, because even if you go for because after this basic Java and all, we will go to frameworks, but frameworks are optional for people with DevOps background. Again, little bit of framework knowledge is good, but we will be learning about package management tools such as Maven and all, which is very much important for both developers as well as DevOps engineers, because DevOps engineers will be building and packaging and all those things automatically in an automated way. But unless you know how to do it in a manual way, how will you do it in an automated way? Okay, so we will wind up, and I need all of you to try doing these things and share your screenshots in the group.